Joe. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. How about you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. Hey.
Today I just finished up a webinar, and I had a provisors meeting, so it's been a busy day.
Yeah. What is Provisors?
It's a professional networking organization. It's a national organization that is we have a ton of chapters in South Florida where I am. I'm in Boca, and basically it's professionals with 10 plus years of experience, and it's I don't want to say it's like BNI. It's really different than BNI. It's very structured, but we have I'm in a local chapter, and then there is an attorney affinity group that I'm part of. There's a women's affinity group, a real estate affinity. There's all kinds of groups within the group, but I like it. And every meeting that you attend, you're allowed to obviously always attend your home chapter meetings, but you can guest at other meetings. So if you do a lot of business with people in another state, you can join meetings in that state. You can join other local meetings. And every meeting you attend, you're going to get paired up with two other people to have a networking session outside of that main group. So you can really make a lot of meaningful connections that way.
Oh, yeah. I think someone was actually telling me about it recently. Gosh, we don't do any networking. It's like our very weak point of our business here.
So, I mean, networking is, obviously leads to the warmest referrals, and so I think if you're doing well converting cold referrals, you're going to kill it with those warm referrals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's definitely a good ad. And if, you or your wife, because I know a little bit about, right, husband,
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you or your wife didn't want to do it, somebody else on your team could do it and represent the firm, so.
Yeah. That's a good idea. We're in the process right now of hiring an attorney salesperson. So they'll just do sales. And we were talking last night about them generating their own business because they wouldn't really need to because we have just a plethora of leads coming in. But yeah, we're talking about compensation and okay, if you brought in your own business, what that would mean, and yeah, maybe I could get him doing it. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for somebody to start to like represent the firm in the community, and then like it show like they have some, I would say, ownership, but definitely belief in the firm, and it's a good idea. And I didn't start networking soon enough in my career, so I feel like it's something that I learned after opening my firm. So and I'm a little introverted too, so it's like it's hard to get out there and do that. But I like Provisors. I think it's a great group. And I don't know what chapters they have in your area. So I know you're on the West Coast, but I can certainly make an introduction if you'd like with the regional director for South Florida.
yeah, sure. I'm always open. Do you do seminars or webinars?
Webinars, I do. And I've been doing them for a few years. I love doing them. I think like that's my favorite thing to do. Educating people, like really sharing value, always tell people when they attend those, like, you're going to leave here knowing more about this and all your friends, and that's great because then you can share it and like have these conversations that shouldn't be taboo, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Um, how often do you do them?
Um, I as often as I can. I mean, I reserve time on my calendar to do it once a week. Obviously, sometimes I have to block that if something comes up, but it's either once a week or at least a couple or a few times a month, usually around the same time.
Okay, and you have like a whole slide presentation for it?
Yep, I do. The title of mine is "How to Protect Your Family and Get Peace of Mind Through Simple Estate Planning," um, and you know, I've made some changes to it over the years. I've also looked at a lot of other um, presentations from attorneys that are killing it on webinars. I mean,
Yeah.
like, I don't want to name drop a bunch of them, but like all the ones you can think of that are out there doing webinars, like, I've tried to connect with them and look at their presentations. Everybody's always been super helpful with that. So my presentation is sort of like, a Frankenstein version of all of the great ones that I've reviewed.
Huh. I'd love to see yours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share. No, I'll say this. I've combined a lot of things that I think I want to include in mine. Sometimes I wonder if it should be like more narrowly tailored to a particular topic. Sometimes, but I don't do a lot of things that maybe some of the other attorneys do, right? Like maybe Medicaid planning, I don't touch that. So that would I'd remove that from my slide deck. And everybody has their own strategies too. Like some people are, using like a few scenarios that they talk about to like really convey the teachable lesson. And for me, I have more of like a slide where I go over the pitfalls in estate planning and like things that I've seen in practice on the probate side and like how to avoid. Most of those things are so easily avoidable, but people make mistakes. You don't know until it's time to deposit that will with the court, or you get reassessed for your taxes or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a guy up in New York I recently did a podcast with, and he does seminars, but they focus just on trusts in the webinar or in the seminar. Yeah, he does. Well, I don't think he does any webinars, his seminars. But it's just all about trust. And the ones that we've done, it's been about trust and wills and advanced directives and his take on it was like, look, my clients don't give a shit about a durable power of attorney, right? Like they couldn't care, so they couldn't care less about it.
I mean, I think that for me, I try to, because you always have the people that come to you and they're like, I just want a simple will. Like, I try to drive home that if you're going to an estate planning attorney, and this is literally what they do day in and day out, like me, they're either planning or they're, administering. We don't want to do just a simple will for you. Not because it's not worth our time, but because like, what's the point? You know what
Right.
I mean? Most of your stuff is going to pass outside of a will anyway. Yes, it's great to have a backup plan, especially if you fall into some categories where like the default rules just don't work for you. But for the most part, we want to help people with comprehensive planning. I want to feel good about my clients leaving me knowing that like they're covered. You know what I mean? And so I sometimes talk like when I'm going over like power of attorney or advanced directives, I'm like, well, think about Britney Spears and her famous conservatorship, right? It's lasted more than 10 years, was like litigated. It was hard to get it undone, without getting into the merits of it or not. It's just like, having these documents in place oftentimes can keep you out of those situations. So I don't spend too much time on them, but I touch on them because I want people to see it's not just about like having one piece, right? It's like all of them. But I can see the value in like really directing the conversation toward trust. And I think we do that just because trusts are the more comprehensive approach anyway. And if you're getting a trust, you're going to get all the other stuff that goes with it. So I think like the questions that people ask are, what's the difference between a will and a trust? So that's where I would spend the time talking. Is like, well, highlighting, yes, having a will is better than having nothing at all, because you obviously get to decide some of these things. If you have minor kids, you can name guardians and all that stuff, but it's not going to do what you think it does. You can't walk into a bank with a will and like, I mean, I know I'm preaching to you, but this is what I
Yeah,
explain.
yeah, yeah.
You know
No,
what I
I like hearing it. How
mean?
people explain it for sure.
Yeah, you can't you can't walk in. And one of the questions I got today was, is it true that a financial institution won't honor a will if there's no beneficiary listed? So you have to think like, as an attorney, I'm thinking, Yeah, like if there's no beneficiary, it's got to go through probate. I know that, but you have to think like what your client is thinking. Wait a second, I have a will. I want to walk into the bank and say, it clearly says that I'm in charge. It's validly signed. What's the difference between this and the power of attorney that I was using a month ago? You
Mhm.
know what I mean? It's just like something changes after somebody passes, and those it's not, it's got to go to the court. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, how do you get people into your webinars?
Ads, Facebook ads, Instagram. Um, I advertise it in my newsletter. I advertise it in groups that I'm in. I give the link to people I network with. Um, but by far, the ads are what fills
Yeah,
the room. But you never know, like, January is a great month, especially after taking, 2 weeks off. So, my webinar, the first webinar I did this year had over like 100 people registered.
wow.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's wonderful, but the show up rate is, like a fraction of that, right? It's
Yeah,
not, it's not going to be not even 50% in most cases. If somebody's getting 50%, I'd love to know like how they're managing that. But I've noticed like really like a third, I think, is kind of the sweet spot. You can get a third of the people to show up, maybe a little bit better than that. It's pretty good. So you're really like, it's a big net, and then you're narrowing it, but it adds people to your mailing list, and then you're sort of dripping on them, and you have your pre and post webinar um, emails that you send out, and then your regular newsletter. And I think that you're developing a long-term relationship with people, that way. They've never
yeah,
met you, but they've seen you talk. They kind of know that you're an authority on this, and it feels a little more personal, right? Because you're showing up in their mailbox all the time.
yeah, yeah, for sure. We send a lot of emails. We send four a week to our database, just of YouTube videos that we put. That's all it is, just content, just helpful content.
That's awesome. Do you plan out that content like quarterly, or do you just like that week?
Yeah, so Ashley films TikTok videos like once a day. At the end of the day, takes her about 5 to 10 minutes. Just sets it up. It's got a little ring light there in her office. Shoots it, doesn't edit it at all. Posts it to TikTok, and then one of our assistants downloads it and then publishes it to the other channel, the other channels, YouTube specifically, and we create a blog from it too. We export the transcripts, have ChatGPT write a blog from the transcripts, so that helps out with SEO. And then yeah, we just send it right out to our database, that the YouTube video, which is essentially from TikTok.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so that one 5 to 10 minute video uh, really gets pushed out in a lot of different mediums. But I do want to get a little bit more dialed in on our audience. Like, okay, if someone reaches out to us for Medicaid planning, right, that
Mhm.
they're then getting Medicaid related content. Um, it's a bit complicated to do that, uh, but we pretty sure we have the system set up for it now. It's a matter of just implementing it, which takes time and energy and focus. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I sort of think, I was like, I love like automation and setting those things up, but I've done that too. Like maybe I want to work with like a particular referral partner, right? And so if they downloaded something that I put out there that was, specific for them, I'll make sure that it's tagged. Once they download it, they get added to the mailing list. So they get added to the regular newsletter, the primary newsletter list. So they get, everything once a month. Like we don't do nearly as much. We probably need to increase like the number of emails we're sending out. But so they get added to that, but they also get tagged. And so that tag, when you can like segment the list later on to say, okay, now we have specific content for our referral partners in this category, whatever the tag is, and you can do that. So imagine you could do the same thing for Medicaid. The problem is, how are you getting those people? And they're probably not signing up on like by downloading a guide or clicking on an ad on Facebook or Instagram, right? Those people are probably picking up the phone and calling you. And so you're going to have to manually.
Well, no, we have it all tagged. So we have all of our Google ads. That's probate and Medicaid. That's how we primarily get prospects, is with Google ads. And so each one of those ads have their own tracking number. In our CRM, anyone calls that tracking number for, say, Medicaid, they're automatically tagged with that. So we've got it all getting all automatic. It's taken a long time and a lot of money to build that system out, but
What's the CRM?
we use Zoho.
Okay. Yeah. So that makes sense. And I think like using something that's not, specific to attorneys, right? You can probably customize it the way you want it. And I've tried a lot of the attorney systems, and there's only one that I really like, that I use. But
Which one?
I use Locus.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of automation that you can do within that. But I also like I don't have. Well, in that case, it's a warmer lead calling in, right?
Yep.
So they would get added to Locus for me because that's somebody who's like taken an action, right? Like indicating they want to schedule an appointment. But if I have people that are just like on the newsletter list, I don't necessarily add everybody from the newsletter list to Locus, right? So that's like colder leads. It's like our outreach, but it's not like people who are getting emails from us like, did you schedule? When are you going to schedule? Or that if they scheduled, did they sign up? And trying to like convert them from a lead to a client. So I treat the two kind of separately. Everybody that's in Locus, like those are the goals: get them to schedule, get them to sign, right? Everybody that's on the newsletter list, keep us top of mind.
Yeah. So in Locus, you're able to have leads, and then once they convert to a client, they turn into a contact or something along those lines?
Yeah, they have like a separate, so it's like a Kanban board view of a
Yep.
lead section, and then you have one for each of your practice areas. So you can kind of see who's on your board and what stage they're in. So for lead management, what I love is also that it includes like automated emails and things like that. So you can trigger the emails to go out a variety of ways. But one of the ways that I like to do it is by either submitting intake forms or moving the lead from one stage to another. So just for that action will trigger a set of automations to go out, so like, okay, we had somebody who scheduled an appointment. Maybe they self-scheduled because we allow that. Maybe they self-scheduled online, but we don't really know if they're qualified yet. So we kind of hold them in like a scheduled appointment stage that they haven't been qualified. We'll call them, we'll qualify them. If they're qualified, then we move them to initial consultation. And that triggers a set of automations that say, now we're like more comfortable that this is the right person for us. So then we'll send them a questionnaire. We'll say, do this before your meeting, and give them like a rundown of like what to expect. Whereas if it was somebody who just was like clicking around on Google, they saw a state and they're looking for a real estate attorney, and it's not really us. Like we don't want to like go through all those motions of sending everything out. So that's part of our process. But I like that we can kind of control the lead journey, but it's not totally manual, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Without automation, I don't know how we would handle the volume of stuff that we're handling. Yeah, it'd be crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I looked at your sales, like your sales protocol for your intake team, right? Or I don't know what you call it, your
Yeah,
intake.
intake. Yep.
Yeah. So Not at so, and I'm interested because you have the intake team, and then you're also hiring like a sales attorney. And I sort of see the two as like two different roles, but I'm always interested to see how other firms do it because it's always different. And I have like a client relations person who is my intake person. She's qualifying leads, she's doing all of the warm contact before somebody schedules, but she's not doing as much of the follow up that your team does after the appointment, where they have like those
Yeah.
the phone calls that they're making to say, did you sign, or what's the update that that perfect
Yeah.
video you put out the other day, like just calling to get an update on your estate planning, like when you want to start that or whatever
Yeah.
that was.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I wrote it down actually, and I implemented it in one of my follow up emails. So thank you.
You're welcome.
But anyway, so she calls. She definitely calls after the appointment, but her KPIs aren't set to convert those clients. Like I put that on attorney sales team. So I have attorney production and attorney sales, and not like a ton of attorneys. We're like 3 attorneys, and then
Yeah.
we have a law clerk who is a licensed attorney, but she's like back. She's not client facing. So when I'm hiring somebody now, because I'm in a position where I'd like to hire more licensed attorneys, I'm like, does this person fit sales or production? Because what I'm finding is like to find the same person who does both, it's really hard to find somebody who's actually good at both of those things. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what, yeah, I met with another attorney not long ago, and this was kind of the discussion because when we first started, right, Ashley was doing the consults and she was doing the legal work, and that has continued to today. Well, she's not really doing legal work now. She reviews and more from a reviewing point of view. We have a reviewing attorney actually, but Ashley will handle some overflow and but in any sense, our Medicaid specialist, if you want to call her that, she's not an attorney, but she does consults as well. But she also does the production. And our Stephanie, who kind of built up our probate department, she was the first one here that we hired her to do that. So she was the very first one. She was doing consultations, but she was doing the production as well. And in what can happen is you get this kind of double-edged sword, because if you're doing both of it, it's like, okay, if I sell 15 estate plans this week, then next week I got to do 15 estate plans. So I'm not trying to sell more estate plans. And so it can be a little bit of a problem in that sense. And yeah, it's like, shit, I don't want to sell anymore because I'm gonna have to work nights and weekends because I have to be on the phones all day selling. Um,
It's
so go
yeah,
ahead.
I would say it's also like, yeah, the energy that you're putting out from a sales position. Like if you believe in what you're selling, and you know it's going to be helpful to somebody, and you know that your team can do a good job, it's a lot easier for you to sell. But if you're in a position where you have doubts about the
Oh,
client or the case you're bringing in, or you kind of are, and obviously we say trust your instincts, right? If it seems like it's not something that we should take, for sure, like go with that. But if it's because you think we're not good enough, or you're not good enough, or something like that, all of that, like whether you realize it or not, it's it's coming off of you in that
yes.
consult. And I had a time period where we had a case, and there was something going on in that case that was just really weighing heavily on me. And for whatever reason, and I was in business coaching, and that quarter, my conversion rate went down. And I was coming up with all these things because we track everything, and I was like, I just can't figure out, like, why is my conversion rate down when all the other numbers are the same? Like the number of leads coming in, the number of appointments I've taken, I'm not, like, there's nothing weird happening. And then we talked about like what was going on. Not that coaching is therapy, but like that came up, and it was like, you're dealing with this really complex case that is taking a lot of your time and your energy, and you're just not like giving off like come work with my firm, you know? And so I feel like ever since that experience, I've really thought about that. Like, if you have somebody who's just not, they don't believe, maybe they're in a region where the pricing is different and they don't believe they can sell our plans because the people in their town wouldn't pay for it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They're going to be giving off that. And so I really do believe it. I think a part of why I've been successful having a really small and efficient team is because there is no one person doing everything. There's no like, this is our go-to for, certainly there are, you know, team members you can rely on or jump in if needed. But I have an assistant that is a legal assistant, works on active files. I have my assistant who is like intake. So she's onboarding and she's also doing offboarding. So that's her role. I have somebody who just does marketing, you know, and everybody has their own like area. And if they were doing everything, there's no way that they would be able to handle, you know, the things that they're good at.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get to the point, especially we do a lot of consults, right? There's a lot of them throughout the day. And so if you're doing both of them, the consults and the legal work, you're probably not going to do a great job at either one. Maybe you'll do a good job, but are you going to be like absolutely fantastic at either one of them? It's difficult, right? So yeah, the whole plan this year is to build up the sales team and have it dedicated. Okay, all you're doing is consults and you're revenue driven, right? And then doing the same with the production team where, okay, you're just production, you're amazing customer service, top-notch legal services, right? Like everything is well beyond what the client expects, and that's what you need to focus on. So yeah, we're finally kind of at that point now where, yeah, we're in the throes of separating it, which has caused a lot of randomity in the office. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I've thought about if you have the right person who just really wants to work on both, like I wouldn't like deny somebody that, you know, if they're like, yeah, I want to like hiring a newer attorney and she kind of wants to like learn everything. But the reason I like her or liked her as a candidate, we'll say, you know, not just talking personally, but as a candidate was because she had a lot of sales background. She researched our firm top to bottom. She knew what clients had said about us. Like she was like, you know, those are the kinds of things you look for, like the will to, you know, learn. So I have, you know, that's, you know, onboarding that team member now, like kind of hope with hopes that she'll be, you know, potentially she could be hybrid, but I think starting in the sales position and like strengthening, you know, our sales position. But I have another attorney and all she wants to do is client consults and she doesn't want to be involved in the production. And, you know, thankfully with like automation and efficiency, like we've always been able to do that. I'm still in production though too. Like don't get me wrong, like that's, you know, one of the things that eventually I'd like to phase out of, but I don't, you know, I don't foresee that right now and we're not in a place where like anybody's um like the clients aren't suffering. We have a lot of leads coming in. My schedule is always booked 2 weeks out. My other attorney is usually booked, you know, 1 week out. That's actually a problem in my opinion. Like it's a
Yes.
great problem. It's a good problem, but it's one that I'm trying to alleviate by bringing on other people. And I've thought about the non-attorney salesperson, but I sort of like how we're doing it. Like we're giving more value than what we're asking for initially. And I think that that is a good way to do business. And so I like having my attorney in that role.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I like the non-attorney salesperson. I do. Um, Stephanie and Annalena both do the consults. They're not attorneys. They're super, super knowledgeable about their fields. They basically taught us, right? Adelina isn't an attorney, but she taught us Medicaid. And
Mhm.
Stephanie's not an attorney. She taught us probate, right? Without them, we wouldn't have those practice areas, or it would have been taken much longer to get there. But having an attorney doing the consults, I do think it breeds a bit more confidence with the client. And I'm not opposed, like Adelina, for example, she's doing Medicaid consults and production. I want to get her off of consults, right? She's much better at the production. She's great with people, don't get me wrong, but as a salesperson, she doesn't really like doing sales. So it's kind of like she doesn't like doing it, then why have her on it? But Stephanie's amazing at sales, loves it, and we've transitioned her over to just as a sales manager. So I want to get this attorney salesperson on, and then I think in the next hire will be a non-attorney salesperson. I'm not sure if I need them to have legal experience or not. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I really dislike making people wait a while for a consult. Like, it is the worst to me. It's like the worst thing, especially the probate and Medicaid ones, because
Mhm.
they're
Emergent.
yeah,
Mhm.
they're
Yeah, we try to. I definitely have like a special like time slot that isn't advertised, on the calendar for like a case that comes in, it's a probate case and we're like, yeah, we don't want them to wait 2 weeks.
yeah,
And I know like from a, time kills deals. That's what, my business coach always says. And that's always
yep,
been a problem I've had. And it's crazy because like as an entrepreneur, I'm always trying to like, I want more leads, I want more business. And it's like, but wait a second, like your calendar's full. You know what I mean? Like you're not running out of the leads. So like shifting my mentality from go out there and get leads and bring in more business because that's your job as the business owner and the rainmaker or whatever, like it's really hard to shift out of that because and then you put on like your practitioner hat and you're like, well, we're also really good at other things, like we can bring in the leads, but like we're also like amazing with customer service and everybody loves working with us and this is all the things that we deliver on. And like, there's like, so but that's the area, like that's the one area where I'm like, it's worth the wait, like meeting with us because overwhelmingly positive, reviews. But at the same time I know that there's, that time kills deals. So I don't know how I can ever clear up my calendar, if like
you
people just want to meet with me. There's only so much I can't do more than,
right.
or maybe I won't do more than, like 4 consults a day. That's like my max. But yeah. So anyway, so that's why I'm bringing on another attorney. And I'm hoping that a lot of the leads that aren't coming in from the networking efforts will happily, like if I'm doing a webinar to say, if you like me, you're going to love everybody that's on my team, right? I
Yep.
have handpicked all of these people, right? And so for those kinds of leads, I'm hoping that they're happy with the team and then they'll work with me, because I'll be involved in it. Well, what I was going to ask you was when you have a non-attorney salesperson, because I'm not opposed to that at all either. I just feel like in my process, I really like the idea of having an attorney like first, because I also feel like in some ways we can multitask, right? We can shift a sales call to a design call. And I've done like the ultimate estate planner course, or like his consult course, and they've got like an 80-90% close rate, but they're sitting in that first meeting and they're knocking it all out. So the next
How long does
meeting
that
is,
take
well, for me, never more than an hour, right?
to
A
do
consult.
to do the design and everything?
If we're able to get it all, like if this person comes to the meeting, they've completed the questionnaire, the sales part is really not like, we're not getting the objections to the sale. It's more like, yeah, we want to do this. Like we're the initial consultation is set up to convert, right? To show people, here's what your estate looks like if you do nothing, right? It's a no brainer to do the estate planning. And then we kind of go through the questionnaire and their assets, how they have things titled and things like that. So yeah, I feel like it's half hour for a sales call if you really need a half hour to sell somebody, and then a full hour if you're not spending all your time on like features and benefits and you're spending your time talking about like their specific situation. Yeah, you can get it done.
Yeah. So you send a questionnaire before
Yes.
they're okay.
It's not like one of these kind of crazy like give us all the information. Like I ask for a breakdown of what the assets are, but I'm not saying like plug in every detail about your assets. And then when we have this session, I'm kind of going over, like I have a list that I'm going over, a spreadsheet, say, tell me about your real estate, tell me about your bank accounts, tell me about your non-retirement brokerage, and all of this stuff. And I'm saying, what do you have? How is it titled? And what's the value? Right? Because if you don't have any beneficiaries, or if you're a married couple and you've named each other, you own it jointly, but you have minor kids, if something happens to both of you, all of this is going through probate. Right? And so we talk about that and the downsides to probate, the things you can do to protect your kids, the differences between a will versus a trust. And if you have somebody who's coming from a webinar, they already got that like base knowledge, right? They sort of know, they're leaning toward one or the other. So you don't have to spend your time selling a trust if they're like, I attended your webinar. It sounds like a trust makes the most sense for me. This is what I have, and then we can like really tailor the call to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah. So by the time we're done with that call, like I book it for them for 30 minutes, but I reserve on my end an additional 30 minutes just in case. So they'll see a 30-minute time slot. If we're really getting into it and there's a ton of value being exchanged and they're happy, I can spend extra time with them. And if they move forward, if I have a complete questionnaire, I've sort of jotted down what our strategy is going to be, I can move them to drafting once they've signed and paid.
I like that a lot. Yeah, we don't send them anything. It's funny from a sales perspective too. It's very smart in the sense that you're giving them homework, and so they're a little bit more invested because they've put a little bit of legwork into it.
Yes. And my business coach has said, I've never made it like a mandatory, you have to do this or we're going to cancel your appointment. And we do free consults. Like that's my lead magnet,
Same,
in
same.
the webinar, right? So yeah, you get a free consult. But it does like, and the webinar talk about this too. We're going to send you a questionnaire prior to the appointment, and completing that one, it lets us know that you're kind of serious about getting your estate planning done. But also it helps us to direct the conversation toward your specific, situation and what your goals are. And so instead of talking high level, what is estate planning? Why do you need it? This is a no-brainer for you. This is our process. This is what it costs. What would you like to do? We're doing all of that, but we're also like really tailoring it to their situation. I've had people come in for a consult, go through that whole process, and then 6 months later come back and sign the agreement, still out there pending. And we need very little to like get going on that. Like I'm always of the mindset that we should get started right away. If we've been retained and we've been paid within 2 weeks and we have all the information we need, obviously, we should have a draft of that estate plan. Then call them in for a review session,
Yep.
and you go over it, make changes as needed, put it through a revision process. But and then obviously, if we can't do all of that on the first call, that's not a problem, right? Then they sign up. The most important thing is that they sign and they pay, right? When they do that, then you can go ahead and send back out a questionnaire. They didn't complete it, so send them the questionnaire, schedule another meeting before we do the drafting and do all of that. So what I've always tried to figure out how I would revise my process if I had a non-attorney salesperson, it's not necessarily, I'm always wondering, like, is it saving me number of meetings I'm having, or is it just shifting the type of client I'm talking to, one that's interested versus one that's retained. I'm still having the same number of meetings,
Yeah.
right? So I've always felt like, is that helping me at all? But that's me with the production hat, the sales hat,
Right.
and you know,
I what's the ideal scene for you in the firm? Like what okay, you have everything you need. What are you doing?
me like as a business owner
Yeah.
and attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting in all of the positions really, with the exception of intake. Like, I don't
Like
work.
let me
Yeah.
rephrase that. Let's say you had all the support and the help that you needed, right? So you didn't have to do any one thing. What would you be doing?
Oh, vision. Yeah, it would just be totally like, what's the direction that we're going?
Yeah.
Are we holding up the ideals and the culture that I set out to implement from the beginning, to make sure that that's not getting eroded over time? So it would just be vision. But I also know, like, I've had this conversation a lot of times in coaching, is like, what do I really want? Do I want to be small and efficient and very, very profitable and then go and take my money and do other things? Or do I want to focus all of my efforts on, just honestly, all I have to do is pull the lever, you know what I mean? And grow. And then I'm have a different set of obstacles and challenges, right? It's not like filling up my
Yeah.
calendar. It's like hiring more people, managing more people, setting up the organization, like the infrastructure that's needed. And I feel like I've done a good job of like building to, like, if I wanted to add more, I could, because every spot is kind of like on solid footing. But so it wouldn't be just like chaos if we pulled the lever and now all these leads come in and we don't know what to do with it, hire bad people or people that aren't the right fit. But I just don't know that that's what I want. Like, I don't know if I want to like run a huge firm.
Yeah. I understand. I
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
We're- how many do you have now? Total employees?
Well, a lot of them are like overseas contractors and stuff, but like my team is 8.
8. Okay.
Yeah. And
All virtual?
yeah, we
Yeah.
don't meet in the office at all. Like, even the attorneys, like I have one attorney, like we've never even met. She's on the other coast of Florida. Not physically, like we never physically met.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She's been with me for like 3 years, I think. And
Oh.
yeah, so totally virtual.
Yeah, we're the complete opposite in that sense. We have this big office space, everyone's in office. Um, yeah.
It's like, you know what? But if your vision is to have a big, beautiful law firm that you're proud when your clients walk in and they see what you've built, that's the vision. For me, I don't think that that was ever my vision. My
Yeah,
vision
yeah.
was to be as systematic, automated, efficient, but my personality type is that people really like working with us. Like, there's no complaints or very low complaints. You know what I mean? That like we do a good job. I'm able to have the lifestyle that I want to have, and every year, click it up a notch. Like, that's what I set out to do. So I feel like in some ways I've gotten there, and I'm like, now what? you know, because you have to, like, as an entrepreneur, you can't just say, oh, I've met all my goals. I'll
No,
just sit here and enjoy it. It's like, it doesn't work like that. You're like, okay, now I really like, and you feel that pressure. Nobody's putting it on you, but you feel that pressure to like
it's always
make
there.
a decision.
That
Yeah.
pressure, isn't it like wild?
Yeah.
It's like you could be making shit tons of money and things, right? But it's like, okay, it's not, there's still pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I just had my quarterly like opening call, with my coach again. And he's like, do you ever listen to yourself talk about like what kind of firm you want? And like realize that it's been pretty consistent for the last 3, 4 years. Automated, efficient, great reviews, you know, cohesive team. Like, now what? You're gonna add, he's like, add more locations. team up with other attorneys, bring on more attorneys, pull the lever on the ads and the marketing, like any of those things you can do. But for some reason, I'm like, you know, I don't know. I don't know the
You're
next.
still figuring it out on what you want, the direction.
Yeah, because I think that ideally I would have a firm that is efficient and automated and works largely without me. So that part I do need to work on. And then I can take my owner pay and invest in other areas that might, start to light me up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Hmm.
Because I'm automating the firm, getting it into a place where it's like working really well. That really did light me up. Working in a firm that works really well is like it's a job. you know. So I'm trying to figure out like that transitioning from that.
Yeah. You're pretty tech savvy, yeah?
I mean, I would think I like to think I am, but I also don't think that I've done anything like extraordinary that like everybody could be doing what I'm doing.
Yes and no. Look, just talking with you now, like you're pretty sharp with business sense, and you're on the way upper echelon of attorneys in regards to business sense, technology sense, all that. Yeah. So
Well, thank you.
yeah, it's very apparent that you have a very sharp eye for that. Um, were you running any businesses before this?
No, no. I just worked for one person before I went out on my own, and he had a practice for a long time, and I learned a lot of, you know, being coming like working for somebody who's like maybe a baby boomer, being a millennial, just like seeing like the difference. Okay, this is the way people used to practice law, and like these are the things that I'd like to do in my practice to like make it more modern. But there were some things that he was doing that I thought were, like really helped me. Like he went from having a brick and mortar office to having a remote location well before COVID, right? And so he moved. He was in a totally different state, but he was running a remote office. And I thought that was so cool because I thought, well, clients will only respect you if you can come in like they're going to a doctor's
Yeah.
office. But it turned out that was not the case. So those kinds of things like helped me. But also knowing too, like, coming in as a person who knows nothing about business, lawyering, anything, like there has to be a system. And so like that in some ways where there wasn't a system, I knew immediately when I started my firm, even when it was just me, like we had to put a system in place for everything.
Yeah. Was it just you when you started
Yeah,
all
it
by
was just
yourself?
yeah, and I was like kept my like I didn't like fully go out on my own. Like my old boss was retiring, and he like with his blessing, I opened my firm, and he even referred me some cases, and so like it was all like not super risky. And my husband has a corporate job, so I didn't feel like a ton of pressure initially to like immediately like build something, you know but I liked it so much. It was like, I can't believe it's mine. I can't believe I can do whatever I want. I can talk to whoever I want. I can set my own prices. I can set my own schedule. So like I just loved it. So I put everything everything into it.
Yeah. We were kind of under the gun when we started. Um, we had moved from California in July of 2019 to Florida, and Ashley was in-house counsel for a healthcare provider there, and she was making good money. And never forget it. It was like 2 weeks before we were leaving, and the plan was for her to work remotely for them. She was going to be in Florida working remotely. Um, 2 weeks before they call her in, it was like 3 weeks before they call her in, and they're like, "Hey, because you're moving to Florida, we want you to take a pretty significant pay cut." We're like,
Mhm.
yeah, she was like,
Mm.
and then she wrote him an email basically explaining why she shouldn't take it. We have all these new cases and all this stuff going on. I'm going to be doing the same amount of work, blah, blah, blah. My location doesn't matter. And a week later, this is about 2 weeks before we're leaving, they fire
Mm.
her. And so we're moving to Florida, and I was in real estate in California. So I was going to do that here in Florida. But that takes time to build up, right? It's a
Mhm.
relationship business. I don't know anyone here. So we came to Florida with not too much money in the bank and no jobs. So yeah, we were a little bit under the gun. I took a sales job shortly after we came, but so I was making some income. But yeah, it was a little bit.
I think, but I mean, that was obviously in hindsight a blessing, right?
Enormous blessing.
Because you had to do what you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It wasn't optional. And I think, yeah, I think that's where, and look at where you are in that time. You know what I mean? When I look at other firms that I like really respect, the time that I opened my firm, which was around 2018 to now, you can see like just some people are killing it. Some people are happy and comfortable, and that's fine. But like you can just see like in that short amount of time, like what can be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody can do it. You know what I
Totally.
mean? Anybody can do it. And it's just like, it matters like what you put into it and what your vision is. Like if your vision is to have a big law firm that you manage, you can do that. And there's sort of a playbook out there for doing it, you
Yeah.
know? And, and I think that you know, I think my playbook was, I'm a mom of three. I have a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 11-year-old, and so I'm a room mom for all of their classes every single year, for multiple kids. I'm on the PTA. I go to the school advisory council meetings. I sponsor the school. I take my kids to sports. You know what I mean? Like those things were super important to me. And so lifestyle was a big part of building my firm. But then I also like really enjoy making money. so like, so it was like I had to like marry the two,
Yeah.
and say, okay, well, I love the lifestyle part. I'm not giving that part up. And so like my coach will say, well, there's things you can do that you won't do. I'm like, that's fair, right? Like there's some things I won't do. If I wanted to sit from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and meet with new clients all day long, and I'm the best closer in this law firm and I'm the best rainmaker, I could do that and we would grow, right? But I'm not willing to do that. So anyway, so
Yeah.
I set out, that was my path, right? Was not grow this business, build it up, create the playbook and sell it, or move on to some other legal ancillary field. Although I do really enjoy helping other attorneys, I've thought a lot about a lot of like friends and people have kind of seen what I've done in my firm will say, well, hey, can you help me do that in my firm? Or like help me with the automations and things like that. I don't think that that's my calling either. I love helping my colleagues, like having these conversations and like showing them what they can do, but I don't think there's a business there for me, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I think what I set out to do in that time period was totally different, And I,
Mhm.
I didn't have the pressure on me probably, that others do, right? If you're a single parent and you're starting your law firm and like there is no safety net.
No.
Totally respect that. It's a different path. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally different path. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your daughter's name Fiona? One of your
Yes.
daughter's name? My daughter's name is Fiona.
How did you know that?
I saw it on your Facebook. You
Oh,
posted
yeah.
something recently. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, my daughter's fan. My kids have all very Irish names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love the name Fiona. Yeah. It was that or Sophia, and we chose Fiona.
Actually, my daughter's cousin, who was born like 2 months, they're 2 months apart, was named Sophia. So, how old is your daughter?
She's 13.
13. Does she like the name Fiona?
Loves it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
She's got a new nickname. Um,
Mhm.
she I forget what it was, somewhere down in we were in Puerto Rico, and you had to like put your name into the computer and then it showed up on the screen on something, and she left the A out, and we all started cracking up, and we started calling her Fions because she
Mhm.
left the, and she loves it. So that's one of her names now, Fions.
It's so crazy how your kids get their nicknames. Like my husband calls her Frodo sometimes. It's like, I don't even know where that came in. It's like when she was a little baby, like teeny tiny, we're like, oh, look at the little Fionas. And then it was like Fronus. And then it was like Frodo. And it's like, where did that come from? And my daughter's like, please, she's 11. So and I imagine at 13, it just gets worse from there in terms of like everything matters. Like she's like, do not call me that. Not in front of other people, you
Oh,
know.
that's funny. That's funny.
But
And you
my
guys, I saw you guys are big Disney people. Is that right?
yes. I
Yeah.
yeah, we are. I would say I am. My husband is like not. He could take it or leave it. He could leave it for sure. My kids love it too. But we went over the break to Disneyland. We went to California, and
What'd you think of it?
it was awesome, but I love Disney World. I mean, like,
Yeah.
what I loved about Disneyland was the Avengers complex and like the California Adventure side is just like stuff that we don't have here. That was really cool to experience. Um, and I wish that we had like an Avengers complex here, but I do love Disney World. And I went to
Yeah.
Disneyland Paris too, and I felt the same way. Like it's beautiful and like
It's
love
not
it.
Disney World though.
It's not Disney World. Yeah.
No, Disney World's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first year we haven't had our season passes. Our daughter got a little bit kind of stale on it. It was like that was our trip. That was what we did all the time since for the first 4 years we were here. It was like
Yeah.
long weekends at Disney World. It's close and it was easy, and the season passes are just super cheap compared to buying regular tickets. Yeah, I love it. I remember when I was a kid, my grandfather for 3 years in a row, and then we skipped a year and went another year. He took 13 of us, and just he took care of everything. We stayed at the Polynesian, and yeah, it was just like the best trips ever. So it's very nostalgic. Um,
Yeah. I think that, yeah, there's something about being there, like as an adult, but like seeing it like through your kids and also like,
yes,
you're reparenting yourself a little bit. I feel like I don't know, yeah,
yeah.
I think it's special, but my husband does not feel the same way, just not at
So
all.
he begrudgingly goes.
Yeah, you could say that. Like he does. But you know what? He is like an engineer and like his personality type is like he would be so happy if we took a week off and didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
He would just love that so much. And I like cannot even fathom, taking a week off, sitting around my house, not making any money and not going and having an experience. I might as well just why even take the time off? Like I'd rather be working. So we're totally different on that.
Where do you stay at Disney World?
We all over the place. Like I definitely like the deluxe hotels, like the beach club or the yacht club, really the yacht club side, and Wilderness Lodge, I think are my favorite. Um, I
I haven't
like the
stayed at
ones.
Wilderness. I haven't
It's
stayed there yet.
Yeah, it's really nice. Have you stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge?
No.
So they're kind of similar setup, but it's like this big grand like lodge. So I like those resorts where it's low pressure to like go do anything. Like you could stay there and chill or you could go like in the morning to the parks and because we're not all about, I'm not a psychopath. Like we don't go there and we're like, go, 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 go. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of more leisurely. I like at this stage, you're going there because you just want to be in the bubble. So it's not like, oh, we've got to do this and we've got to ride, whatever. It's like super low key once we're there. So we'll go in the morning time sometimes to a park and then go back to the resort, hang out at the hotel, go to the pool, that kind of thing.
That's my perfect day. Do you guys go for like park opening?
Sometimes I get a lot of like
Get a-
resistance to
Me
that.
too. Me too.
Yeah.
See, that's what I want. That's what I want to do. I want to have, because I can get up early, no problem for me, right? So I would rather get there at park opening, have a few lightning lane, and then hit the rides, and then go back by 11, 12 o'clock and spend the rest of
Yeah.
the day at the pool. That's like
Yeah, you gotta
perfect.
get your park snacks. Get like you gotta like there's some like places I'm like, all right, gotta do this. Like everybody has like I'm mapping out. I'm not even kidding. Like this is the this is gonna like I'm like almost embarrassed to share this, but like I printed out the Epcot like foodie guide, the foodie guide to like go for my birthday. And I'm like gonna like pick the places that I want to go because they redid a lot of the pavilions and like that's my goal. Like I'm going there to like hit some of these places, try the different things, and then like if anybody has an agenda from there, I'm in. If not, we can, go back
Yeah.
and hang out.
When are you going?
Friday. My
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice, nice. How
Yeah.
long's the trip?
Just the weekend. So we'll
Okay.
come back Sunday.
How far of a drive is it for you?
3 hours.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad. We're a little bit better. We're at about hour and a half without traffic. Um,
Yeah.
what's your favorite restaurant there? And
Um it's not restaurants. It's like I like the different like places that you can eat inside the park. Like for example, in Hollywood Studios, I think it's the Fairfax something or other, but it's like near the Tower of Terror and the Rock and Roller Coaster. They serve in waffle cone bowls, mashed potatoes, and buffalo chicken.
really?
Yes, it's
That in
amazing.
that little like outdoor kind of kiosk thing?
Yeah, it's not the restaurant like the quick serve. It is quick serve, but it's like it's not a quick serve restaurant. It's like a little like it's next door to the little ice cream shop. It's called the
Okay.
Fairfax, and they have like you could get like noodles or something in the waffle cone bowl, but that's I like the buffalo chicken mashed potato like bowl. So like stuff like that. It's like little things like that rather than just going to a restaurant. But I like Thanksgiving food, so any of the restaurants that serve like family style like that, I
Uh,
enjoy.
yeah. Have you taken the kids to the Hoop Dee Doo review?
Yes. A
That's
long
so
time ago though. Like it was a while ago. My husband liked it because they served pitchers of beer as part of the
yeah.
like it was like built into the fee. So he loved that. Um and it was like unlimited. But I don't remember I mean I remember being there, but I don't remember. I think my I didn't have my youngest child yet. I think I only had my middle. Yeah. It
Mhm.
was a long time ago.
The youngest is 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's
It's a
how's that for the parks?
um it's like so the youngest and the oldest get along really well. You know, my middle child unfortunately and he's like the most like kind, loving, like he's never met a stranger. For whatever reason, the other two like kind of like beat up on him a little bit. So I'm like sad for him, but like in a sibling way. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
Because like my older daughter, she's like a very big sister to the younger one, you know? So he's like just clings to her like a second mom, you know?
So you have a girl and 2 boys?
Two boys.
Okay.
Yeah. Where and my daughter and my middle son, they're like closer in age, so they've always had like the sibling, like close sibling relationship, but also like the
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 rivalry.
yeah, exactly. Whereas the younger one, it's almost like he didn't even count like as a younger son. You know what I mean? He's just like a baby that joined our family. And everybody, it's like a puppy.
Like a pet, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he loves her. He calls her Yaya. He couldn't say Fiona, so he calls her Yaya. He'll call for her. He'll say, mommy's not listening to me, or something like that, and he'll go to her.
Oh, that's so cute. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest regrets is that we only had one. We should have had more. But
Well, My husband likes to say quality over quantity.
I tend to say the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Although he loves the children that we have, like no regrets there. But anytime I've suggested that we have more, he's like quality over quantity. Like
How
let's not.
many how many would you have?
I'd have probably like six, honestly. Yeah, I would have a lot. If I didn't have to, birth all of them because that part is challenging. But yeah, I love that's like that they're the loves of my life,
Isn't
you
it the
know.
best thing in the world?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
resisted having kids, and yeah, Ashley and I were married for several years. Must have been 6 or 7 years, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off, and then I remember one day I was like, I don't know if I want to have kids, and she looked at me, she started crying, and then the next day she said, if that's the case, we're not gonna be together. I said, okay, we'll have kids, and but it was, yeah, it wasn't for me. She was pregnant the whole, she was pregnant, but it wasn't real for me until she was born, and then it was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing in the world. It's just, and it's only gotten better, right? It's only gotten better,
Yeah.
different.
I think yeah, I think my husband could probably relate to that too. It's like he would have been fine, just spending all his money on, electronics and, sleeping in and
Yeah,
all those things. Like he would have been totally
yeah.
fulfilled.
I was golfing 6 days a week, and like,
Yeah, it would have, yeah, it was fine. But definitely I do think for, like for dad, like once the baby's here, like, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? Like it clicks.
yeah, it's such a creation, you know. So, and you can kind of relate it to your own, to entrepreneurship and your own business, right? It's just such a create, but it's like this living thing that thinks on its own, but you can definitely kind of mold it and steer its direction and give it values, and it's very very similar to, when you think about it, I guess, a business in a sense.
Yeah, I would say I'm learning though that I don't have the creative control that I that I had thought I might. Like, don't you want to listen to these awesome lessons like that I have to pass on to you? Like I learned this.
Oh,
No.
forget about it. Oh my
Yeah.
God. My daughter thinks that we are the biggest jackass idiots in the world. Yeah. But
Yeah.
but she still, even though she acts like that, she you can tell that she still listens, right?
Mhm.
Right? She'll roll her eyes or whatever, but she still, and then I'll hear her talk to other people, and she'll convey these values or things that we've said. She'll say it like it's her own. It's
Yeah.
I'm like, God damn
That's
it, you're taking credit for what I gave you there. Yes.
yeah, so she's adopting some of it, like, but you know what though, I've learned too that my daughter, you know, as much as I like see myself in her, she's not me.
Right. Right.
She's braver than me. She will say things to people, that I would never have like the courage to say, and I know obviously we're, in a kid appropriate way, right? But like she has no problem like voicing her concerns, her opinion, like she will stand up for herself. You know what I mean? Like those kinds of things. And not that I don't. I mean, obviously I'm a lawyer and like I, can speak and advocate, but I'm also like I have a personality type. I'm a people pleaser. You know what I mean? I'm always thinking of like giving good customer service and not, like you won't see me telling off a client ever.
Yeah.
I've heard attorneys talk about that. Like, sometimes you have to put a client in their place. And it's like, I find another way. You know what I mean? I'll find another way to do it and have the same effect. But that's just me. So I think that like I learned from her probably even like a lot more than she would ever learn from me. just because I'm like, damn girl, you can like just say that to somebody and like I'll say like a friend or a boy or something and she'll just be like I'm busy. Like I you know what I mean? Like and I'm like, I would have to like, you know,
Conjure up some,
the
yeah.
mental gymnastics that I would have to do. And she's just like, leave me alone. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, our daughter is very outspoken. Sounds very similar to yours. Very, very similar. Very outspoken. Doesn't her filter is not on. Um, yeah, your kids do sports?
Yeah, a little bit. Like they play basketball. But my daughter's not going to do it. I don't know that she'll do it again. She did last season. My middle son loves basketball, which is cool for me because I love basketball too growing up. So I'll take him to this past year I took him to like 3 Miami Heat games. It was such an awesome experience to like take him to those. And I'm like maybe more of like the sporty type between me and my husband, so that he would like want to have that experience with me. It was really cool.
Yeah.
He'll go camping with my husband, and like do that kind of thing. And so they get that like father son time, but that I got picked to go to do the basketball games was just super cool. I got to figure out a way to get season tickets through the firm so that I can, go more often.
Yeah. What do season tickets run?
I don't know. I got to figure it out. That's that's on my to-do list this
Yeah.
year because I'm sure it would be a great thing to offer clients and referral partners. And I know that people do it. I just don't know. I guess I need to have a conversation with my accountant to figure out like, how does that really work? Like if I use it
Gosh, yeah.
90% of the time, is it really, but I don't know that I'd even be able to use it 90%. I
Right.
live in Boca. Getting to Miami for a basketball game can sometimes be a 3-hour drive. Like it's an hour away, but just getting in and
Yeah.
traffic and everything. So I probably wouldn't use it all the time. I'd probably pick a few games a year and then I'd give it out. So I don't know. I got to figure that out.
It's a really good idea though. We were trying to figure out how to spend money at the end of this year. We bought a couple cars. Um, yeah, just spent more money on marketing and all that stuff. But yeah, our accountant called us and said we got a problem. You spent too much. You made too much money. So that's interesting. Maybe we'll do something like that. I like that idea.
Yeah, I mean, last year I was in that position too where I was trying to find areas, but I was trying to be strategic about it too. I was like, what, like, is it stuff that I can use? Like, I bought a laptop that I haven't unboxed yet. I'm like, I bought like things for the office and, but I was trying to buy things that I knew I would use, but I should have looked into the season tickets because, yeah, the Miami Heat season tickets would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. There's no basketball team here, but Tampa's super close with got baseball and hockey and football. Yeah.
Hockey would, I think, be a cool one.
Oh, I love hockey's my sport. That was my best sport growing up. My most favorite too. Watching hockey live is the best. There's no hockey
Yeah.
team down there, is there?
No, but
No.
when I lived growing up, I lived in New York, and I think I went to like, is that Islanders,
Hmm.
that
Yep.
hockey team? I'm pretty
Yep.
sure I went to an Islanders game. I was like super violent. I remember I remember it just being like really like contact.
Oh my
Um,
God. Back in the day before they put in a lot of rules, but in the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was like super crazy. Super
yeah,
like they didn't wear helmets and yeah,
yeah, yeah,
nuts so.
yeah.
But yeah, well, thanks for your time. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for
thanks
meeting
for
with me.
inviting me on. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Good, good. Yeah, you're killing it. Sounds like you're killing it. Hopefully, you pick one direction you're gonna go in, whether you're gonna grow the shit out of that or are you doing
Yeah,
you're doing really well financially?
Yeah,
Right?
I would say doing
Good.
pretty good. Yeah, and
Good.
I also like, I didn't mention this, but like when I first opened my firm, I did personal injury as well. And
Mm,
so I've sort of shifted away from that because I'm not, as I was having kids and like, raising little babies, like the litigation was just not for me. And so I wanted to be more transactional, but I never stopped marketing that side of my practice, not with dollars, but with word of mouth, with the clients that I have, and like in all my communication. So I still bring in some of those cases now that I will co-counsel with people, depending on what kind of case, like the best people that you can co-counsel with. And so over the years, I've also settled some cases or been part of settlements that have, you know, increased my revenue. Sometimes it can totally replace, whatever revenue you hustled for in like the estate planning month over month in a year, and you settle one PI case and it's just like,
wow,
you did
really?
it. But so I've done well, like with, when you consider some of those settlements plus the estate planning and probate, which is just like a constant, like more predictable
Yeah.
revenue. But I also like now with probate, not to like get you all back into like this
You're
conversation,
good. No, 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 you're good.
but with probate, like that's why I like probate, and that's why I don't charge hourly for probate,
Yeah.
because I come from that, like the
Like,
sky's the limit.
yes.
You know what I mean?
That's why we started probate. I was like, first of all, well, we started with business law right as COVID. We started May of 2020. Ashley only knew business law. And then we got into estate planning like maybe a year later. And I started like thinking like, okay, what if there's another pandemic? Okay. Businesses, if we're doing business law, right, businesses aren't going to really, right? And so I was like, probate is recession proof. People are always going to die. And then it was like the percentages, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like,
So now my hope is that the probate side of my practice will replace what was at one time like coming in the contingency fees. But I do hope that I'll still continue to get those PI cases. I mean, I have people that I've done good work for. And I think that's the one thing, like you can't overstate, like you have to do good work. You know what I
yes,
mean? Like you cannot be successful if you don't do good work. So for everything I've done, like I've done good work, and like those people will call me and they'll say, or, if you're the only attorney that's emailing your past client or your future client, you're the one they're going to call when they've got a case. So I always put in there, what my practice areas are. I will never drop, I mean, don't quote me on that, but I don't think I'll ever drop the personal injury side of it,
smart.
just
That's smart.
because the potential there is tremendous. But yeah, I had a case that settled last year that was really good, and I knew that case, like always in the back of my head, I knew that case was going to settle at some point, and it was going to just like wipe everything. Like
It
it
was
was going to
big.
be great. Yeah. So that happened, and then I did have to, like, in terms of like figuring out your numbers, and like, I'm like with my coach all year, it's like, forget I did that, forget that that's there. Am I still doing well with, you know, my intentional marketing?
Yeah.
So, but then
Because
you also,
that can skew the numbers, right?
for sure, it's an outlier,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you want to have like predictable revenue. So, but then again, my coach will say, yeah, but if you don't include that, like you did that, number one, but number two, like last year, you had $1 million probate, right? Are you not going to count that? Are you not going to count like when, you have somebody who came in for an estate plan and then brought their mom and then brought their brother, and then like, and that turned into a big fee? Like where do you stop? So I sort of wrapped my head around that and said, okay, yeah, like this counts. I did
Yeah.
that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it may not be like next year, I may not hit that same number because that was an outlier, but I'm not going to not count it, you know?
Totally. Totally. What's the um what's the biggest probate you've done?
Um, Pending, I have a few that are like 5 to 7 million.
Nice.
Yeah. So those will be the biggest. Those will be the biggest. And it's yet to be seen how those will pan out. One for sure, I know that like everybody's in agreement on the structure, like how
On
we,
the fee structure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The other one, there were people who, there were heirs. It's not a contested case, but there were heirs who hired counsel. And the counsel that they hired, like they haven't exhibited to me that they truly understand how probate works.
Mm.
And so, you know, in the back of my head, I'm thinking they're here to object. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for that, I have to really think about, okay, like statutory fees, like me and my client, we're on board. You know what I mean? And always would work with the client, you know, on that. Like if it's a huge case and it's, you know, one account or something, like be reasonable. But when you have parties that have made the probate a lot more difficult than it needs to be for no reason, like everybody's getting what they're getting because that's what the law says. There's
Yeah.
no question, right? So on that one, I'm like sort of gearing up for, you know, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a letdown to say like, all right, you know, are we gonna have to adjust on this to get it to the finish line, or you know, what are we gonna have to do? Because I'm not an hourly biller, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go back and recreate timesheets, just not my practice. So I don't want to do that.
And though some of them, I recall having a case like that was like demanding that we do, or they wanted an accounting of all the work that we did, and we're like, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it being a little bit of an issue.
Did you end up with the statutory fees on that one?
I can't remember. It was like 2 years ago. Um,
Well, let me know offline because that's one of the things that I'm like, are we gonna have to go to mediation over what is statutory presumed reasonable? Like he mentioned mediation before we even talked about fees. He was like, well, we think we'll go to mediation. I'm like, for what?
yeah,
Like, what do you want to mediate? The law says you get this amount. We're going to produce an inventory and you're going to get that percentage. You know what I mean? Like, there's
yeah.
nothing to mediate here. But now I'm sort of thinking, maybe we're going to end up in a mediation.
How do you handle homestead property?
Flat fee. I mean, it depends. Like, if it's homestead alone and it's a summary administration, there's no creditors. Like I won't do it if there's creditors, like a summary. There's no creditors and it's homestead alone. It's a flat fee. I charge $3,500 for a summary administration
Same.
plus costs. Yeah. So I don't charge anything extra to do a homestead petition, and I don't include the value of the homestead in the fee calculation.
What about for formal?
For formal, it same. I mean, I don't count the value of the homestead. It's a flat fee minimum. Like to if you're going to hire us, even if it's a small estate that needs, we're going to require a formal. It's a minimum 5,000. But
We charge 65.
okay, so I think that's fair. I think I think the average that I've just in my own like putting feelers out there with attorneys, I think people are expecting around 7,500 for a
Yeah,
formal administration. They're expecting that that's what it's going to bring in, whether they're billing it hourly or statutory, whatever.
because it's like if it's
So
$100,000 estate, right? Charging the statute, just like
it
can't
doesn't
do it.
make, yeah, you
No.
can't do it. And obviously there's a reason there. If it's a small estate and you're filing it as a formal, there's a layer of complexity that has caused you to file a formal,
Yes. Right.
so like
Exactly.
it's going to be more work than a summary. um so my threshold is 5,000 minimum, and then if it's over a certain amount, like once you get to like the 3% range, that's when we say, okay, 3%. I think it's like $167,000 is where you calculate like at 167,000, 3% is a $5,000 fee. So anything over that amount, we're billing at 3% up to $1 million,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we'll deduct whatever they already paid us. So if it's $1 million estate, they paid us five, it's a $30,000 fee. We're billing them for 25,000.
Yeah.
after they retain
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you collect fees for that? Do you collect it all up front or?
The minimum fee, so estate planning all up front, probate, summary all up front, formal, the 5,000 up front, earned upon receipt, flat fee, minimum flat fee. Because in many cases, that's all the fee. It's the entire fee.
Yep.
It's only after we finalize the inventory and we really know what's out there that we can determine if there's going to be an additional fee.
Got it. What if it's like the fee is going to be 25,000? Are you saying we need to say that up front, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's it's $1 million estate, whatever. Are you demanding the full payment up front?
No, I used to, if we knew exactly what it was going to be, and it was like under 10,000, I'd say, yeah, this is what we know exactly what the assets are. This is what the fee will be. I'll send you an invoice for that. But over time, I realized that like things come up and like clients may not have access to the entire, like clients can typically come up with the $5,000, right?
Yeah.
They figure that out, they put on a credit card, and then within 2 months of them being appointed, they can file an inventory. And at that time, they have access to the money as the personal representative. They've reported to the court. They can now get their reimbursed. So that's why I'll do it that way to say, okay, let's figure out what exactly there is. And then it's only a 2-month wait, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We do the same. Absolutely the same. Yeah. We have a lot of, but we'll oftentimes, kind of depending on the potential client and what their situation is, and the size of the estate, we'll do pay later options, right? We'll even cover costs sometimes if it's big enough.
I do that. I do cover costs, honestly, just because it's easier initially to like figure out what exactly that amount is going to be. Once I get the publication costs, then I shoot them an invoice. So I'm not like covering, I take a flat fee up front, right? So, but the costs are billed to them. So I'll file, I'll publish, I'll invoice them for the filing and the publication fee.
Mm-hmm.
And that usually covers it.
Do you charge more for the people that need to pay later?
No, I don't have a policy for like payment schedule. What I will tell people, like, so say on the estate planning side, somebody really wants to work with me. I want to get them committed. I'll say, sign up, make some payments. We will not deliver drafts until you're paid in full, but allow you to make the payments. I don't have a structure for it.
Yeah.
Like, it's sort of like when the payments come in, it's logged in the system and I can see when it's paid in full. So I'll do that. And that's why I don't discount, because I can't, just because somebody comes in, they're like, they want a discount. I'll say no. And I have this mom who's been paying me for 3 months, my full fee. And you, just for walking in to sign up, want a discount. Like, I can't do that. Yeah. So that's my reasoning for that.
Some people are just wired like that though. It's just like they feel if they don't get a discount, they're getting ripped off.
Yeah, I know that, but I just like, it's one of the hardest things I've had to do.
I hate it.
As a business owner, it's like, because I want to please everybody, but I also realize that if I did that, like there would be no, like, what's the boundary? Like you can get it, but you can't get it. It's like, it's got to be a total moratorium on, or, I don't know what the right word is, but like, we don't do it. It's our policy. Yeah. So, with the webinars, what I'll tell people is if you get the free consult, if you sign up by midnight, the day of your strategy and design session, we'll take 10% off the plan.
That's great.
And that's like, and I'll tell people that's the only time you'll ever get a discount from us. And we are strict. It has got to be that day. It can't be, oh, the next day I forgot. No, sorry.
So you're saying all this in the webinar?
In the webinar, yes.
That's great. So you deliver the price at the end of the webinar?
I don't deliver the price, but I offer the discount.
Okay.
But I will, if somebody in the comments is like, we have a Q&A session and they're like, what's the price? I'll say, I'm not going to hide the ball on the pricing. We do comprehensive plans, and it's going to depend on if you're planning by yourself, planning with a spouse, if you're coming in the office, if you're doing it remotely, if you're getting a will plan or a trust plan. But I can tell you our range is on average 1,500 to 4,000, depending on what you get. And then, it can be more complex than that for sure. If you have a lot of deeds you need and like, it can be more than that, but like that's the average.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is 4,000, is that where you're at, like for your joint plans?
Yeah. And, so like 3,000 for individuals. So here, I do things a little bit differently. So my joint plans are 4,000. My individual plans are 3,500. But if people are working with us more remotely, they're not coming to the office for a signing, and we're going to have like mail the documents to them, and we're going to have a notary go out to them to do the signing, we discount the plan. So I call that a discount. I don't really count that as like a discount on the pricing. Like, hey, I want to, will you do it for less? You know what I mean? No,
Yeah.
it's like a built-in discount to say our in-person signings are this level. If we're working with you remotely, many of our clients want to do that just because they're also young families. My office hours are their office hours. It's hard to get people in for that. So that's how I structure it. So it could be 3,000 for an individual and 3,500 for a couple if we do it that way.
Got it. Got it.
And I prefer it. I mean, I'm like really comfortable with that because
You prefer what?
I prefer, like, I'm not mad about that pricing. I'm not like, oh, I wish they would come in the office and I could charge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've said it that way because now, of course, if I had a bunch of people coming in for a signing, I would just schedule my signings on one day and go to the office and like, boom, I feel happy about how I did that. But I'm also comfortable with like, I don't have to leave my office. They don't have to leave their house. And like, everybody's happy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, you feel like you could charge more?
I think I could, yes, we could tolerate it here where I am in Boca. But I also like, I don't know, I've struggled with this too because um, I'm trying to work with people who have young families, you know? And so I want it to be in the range of like, it's still like it's an expense, right? It's not as fun as buying a bag or going on vacation. Like it's an expense, but it's not an expense you're like, I'm never doing that. Sorry. It's just too
Yeah.
much. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's got to be like that. I feel like that's the sweet spot where people are like, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, or not, but they're not like, oh my gosh, that's so reasonable. You know what I mean? If everybody was like, that's so reasonable, I would say, maybe we need to reevaluate our pricing a little bit. But I feel comfortable with it. I mean, a will package for an individual at 1,500 or 2,000, depending on how they want to do it, I think is a really good, it's a good price. If people don't understand the value that you're delivering with a comprehensive estate planning package, they're just not the right fit. They think they're going to come in and you're going to fill out a form while they're sitting there and now you have a will. Like that's a will clinic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Legal aid can do that, you know? That's not what this kind of boutique planning experience is.
Right. Right. With the webinars, are most of the people local that are attending, or do you market
Yeah,
to the whole state?
I market locally. That's one of the things that my coach has said is like, why not just expand, the region? I do have clients throughout the state though. I'm not sure if they come in like through SEO because like I've done like different SEO things in different cities and counties. But I haven't like measured that nuance. Like somebody coming from Gilcrest, did they come to me from a webinar or did they come to me like from, somewhere else? Like that, I don't know. But that's a lever that I could pull, right? Is that I could like just, okay, instead of the Tri-County area, let's just go every county. Boom.
Yeah. What's kind of the percentage, or do you track the percentage of attendees versus consults that book?
Yeah, I think it's really, what I said in the beginning, like if 100 people register, I'm expecting 30 to show
Yeah.
up. Of that, I'm maybe expecting 10 to schedule. And then of that, it's just your regular conversion rate. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
for me, that's going to be probably around 40%. That's my conversion. And I'm not distinguishing between cold lead versus referral. Like obviously there's a difference there. It's kind of like everybody, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to really weed them out, especially in our system, right? With our CRM and everything. We have our closing percentage, but it's like, I think ours is higher because we only count somebody in the closing percentage if they buy within the same month or 2 weeks into the next month. Um, so if they buy 6 months later, which happens, then we
Mhm.
don't count that in the closing percentage.
I do like I think I've sort of resigned or I've I've said okay, it's not going to be a perfect calculation. If I get 5 conversions this week and I've only met with 4 people, that's the percentage for this week. You know what I mean? I got 5 this week, that's it. And then in 1 week, if I met with 5 people and I got 2 conversions, like that's true.
So
The honest
you're looking at it as like first contact closes.
um I measure number of prospects. Of those, how many of those are qualified?
Uh-huh.
Of those, how many are scheduled to meet? But that's not a perfect calculation. I am measuring that. I'm measuring that, but I have sort of like a weekly snapshot where I just want to see the raw numbers for the week. And
Yeah.
for that, that's what I'm talking about. Like I have another calculation like dashboard. I've really only been doing that for like maybe 9 months where I'm like getting into the nitty gritty. Like if Drew Zimmer,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I've talked to him about like he and I have discussed the how he does his lead tracking, and I've tried to mimic that. So I have my CRM, which tracks. I have my weekly snapshot, which is number of prospects, number of qualified prospects, number of appointments scheduled, and that's not necessarily from those prospects, right? That's the number of consults I have scheduled that week, and then number of meetings that were attended, and then number of conversions. So it will even out because like that's what we're measuring every single week. But
Right.
obviously, you're going to have prospects this week that don't meet with you until 2 weeks from now, and you're going to get conversions this week from somebody you met with 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But that's the measurement every week.
So you're not tracking them. So if someone has a consult today and they close 2 weeks from now, that doesn't get counted into your like close percentage.
No, not on that snapshot, but I am. But like, I am tracking that now. I'm just
Right.
not used to looking at it that way
Yeah.
because I'm used to just seeing like, I want to see like on a weekly basis and on a quarterly basis, like what's our close rate. Now I'm going back and I am doing more of like what Drew does. First call, where does it come from? Like looking at call rail. Were they qualified? Did they schedule? If they scheduled, what's the date of their appointment? Did they attend their appointment? Did they sign their contract? If they signed, what date did they sign? What's the difference between the date of the appointment and the date of the signed contract? So all of that I am tracking it. But it's not what I look like as like I just want to see like week by week, how did we do? Okay, it's
Yeah.
30%, 40%. Some weeks are 80%, so I'm like averaging out the quarter. I'm just curious. I'm going to look at it and try not to lose you on the screen. Every quarter I'm trying to say like on average, what was the attorney close rate? What was my close rate? What was my other attorney's close rate? Like how did we measure up? And I would say like on average, the attorney conversion rate is 40%. Like if you look
Yeah.
at both of us, so maybe I close a little bit better, sometimes that, you know,
Yeah, yeah. And you said Locus, right?
Yes.
And does Locus track all these numbers for you?
Um, it can, but it's not what I'm using. Like I'm a little bit
What are
like
you using?
I love the data, so I just have paid an Excel guru to like build out my dashboard. And so I have like
He's doing it in
this,
Excel?
yeah,
Oh my
that
gosh.
that measurement. But I do have, I mean, I could pull a report in Locus and probably get the same thing. The only thing with Locus that doesn't um, it doesn't do what like the report that I have on my Excel spreadsheet is like we're tracking every lead that comes in Locus, every single one of them. And so if you look at every single lead that comes in versus how many consults you had, like the numbers are totally skewed, you know? So that's where I like to, you know, distinguish between qualified and not qualified leads. And honestly, Locus has made a ton of changes because they're just like they've been a startup for a long time. You could probably track that there now, but I just haven't been.
Yeah.
So I have this
Yeah.
whole dashboard that like will like I have the spreadsheet and the dashboard pulls from the spreadsheet and it shows like pie charts and all this stuff and it's like quarter by quarter and you can see like what you know what lead source has brought in the most. And so it's not like
Yeah.
primitive, but it is like when I started it was just how many calls, how many qualified, how many appointments, how many attended, how many converted.
Mhm. Yeah, Zoho has been incredible because it does all of that, right? And yeah, it just pulls all the data and it just pumps it out in one of the apps is excuse me, analytics. Um, but yeah, before we got Zoho, I was wanting to do what you're explaining, right? Even having a spreadsheet. I'm not a spreadsheet. I love spreadsheets. I love making spreadsheets, but I am not a wizard by any sense. But I didn't even think about hiring somebody to do it all for us. God darn it.
Yeah, this person that I use is like over in the UK and he's a wizard, and he's like on top of it. And now I'm just paying him. I told him I'm not going to do it forever because, I don't necessarily need this, but he's so good. I'm paying him to crunch the numbers for me too and provide me with a report just like my SEO company. Like once a month I get a report that says like this is where
Yeah.
you're ranking and whatever all the details that they send. So he's doing the same thing, and then like he'll make suggestions to me, and we have been working, on this for, going on a year. Like we're not quite there yet. So it's just kind of cool to see like in just that amount of time what I've been able to come up with. But before that, I was tracking like referrals in, referrals out. I was tracking everything like um, like I told you, just like raw numbers, not tied to the client. Although in Locus, it is tied to the client or the lead, right? You can say what the referral source is and put that together.
Does it do it automatically or you have to do it manually?
Um, it doesn't. Well, I guess it depends on how you're inputting the data into, right?
Yeah.
Like for me, a lot of my leads are added to the system by the answering service completing a form.
Okay.
So if somebody calls in and they don't like they go to the answering service has a quick form that they complete, and when they submit it, it creates a contact or a lead in Locus. And
Yeah.
then that triggers an automation to my intake person who like, hey, this lead was just added. Go, call them, qualify them, use this form to qualify them, and then that form triggers another set of automations. So it's like I don't know if I've built like this nasty web, but that's how I do it. And the only way to like get the nitty gritty data is to like actually go to CallRail, which also tracks everything, right? Like you go to CallRail and pull a report and say like this is the number of people who called you from
Yeah.
whatever. So it's like I have all this data everywhere. I was trying to this past year with the spreadsheet, like bring it all in because I felt like some of it couldn't be automated, especially if they're coming in, a web form gets completed, they get added to Walkus. Like I know it was from a web form, but I don't know.
Do you know which one, like which web form and all of that?
I do, but I don't know. I just felt like I needed a place to like bring it all together.
Yeah, I can't recommend Zoho enough. Like when somebody calls in from a call tracking number, I mean every number we track, but if they call from this ad for this, say, Medicaid campaign, right? Like a specific number for that ad for that Medicaid campaign. When they call in, they could call in and say, "Oh, I received one of your postcards." They could tell reception
Mhm.
that. Reception could put in postcard, but the system will override it because they know that they called that ad number.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because that's kind of like what CallRail does, right? It will tell you like the first, like they may have called me from Google Organic, but their first contact was a click on the website or something. You know what I mean? Or like
yep,
newsletter or something like that. Like CallRail can do that, but yeah, there is still some level of like manual entry there.
right.
Like somebody's got to enter the data, and so that's interesting that the system does that.
Yeah, and
I'm sure.
you got to rely on the prospect telling you where they heard from you. Like we'll get
Mhm.
tons of postcard calls where the person says that they found us on Google. It's like you just called the number that's on the postcard. Right?
Yeah,
No, we found you on Google.
that's why we double check call rail too, because a lot of times people just say internet or whatever. But then
Yeah,
sometimes call rail will show, and that's the other thing that I felt like we didn't have control over this. Call rail will show that they clicked on an ad, but they'll tell us my friend did work with you or whatever. You know what I mean? And then you're like, so they got our name, they put it into Google. You know, we popped up on LSA. They clicked the, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that's another thing too that I just felt like you can automate a lot of it, but the cleanest way for me to like put all the data in one place was to um, create this like custom dashboard thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It makes sense. Yeah, that was what I wanted, and then I remember the thing that I really needed. We were using the CRM Close, which is basically it's meant for realtors, but it had some good integrations with phone system and email and project management that I liked, which I couldn't really find with other law um, platforms. But what I really wanted was automatic. Um, I wanted a call cadence. So when a consult didn't close, that we followed up with them in a very specific cadence. And I couldn't find that anywhere.
Mhm.
And like nowhere. I knew Salesforce could do it, but we had tried Salesforce right when we first started and it was super expensive. I spent like 20 grand on a developer to try and build it out and he got me like one component of what I wanted. Everything else was shit.
Mhm.
Um, and then yeah, we found Zoho and the guy I spoke with was like, yeah, I can do that, no problem. And that was the only reason I got Zoho. That was just literally for that, because we were using spreadsheets for the call cadence, and it was all manual entry, and you forgot to put that you called the person. It was just like a mess. But then it's just opened up this whole other world of amazingness. We've spent a fortune building it out. Um, yeah,
It sounds awesome, and I think you have to be a certain type to be able to make a non-attorney product work for a law
right,
firm. You really have to like it is just it's out of the box, you know?
right. Yeah,
Um
I'm not the normal, and you don't sound like the typical either. Um, yeah,
yeah,
the way you have a lot of business sense. Um, you're not in the norm.
yeah, I've learned that, but I've always thought like, maybe I'm better at this than being a practitioner, or maybe I do have like more of like a sense when it comes to like setting these things up, because it's not sophisticated. It's actually pretty ugly how I do it. It's not like I build it all out on like, in like a web form, and then I take that and I like, mastermind this workflow. It's like, when I set it up, it was just so sloppy, really. It was like, all right, client calls, I can't answer it because at the time I was, answering a lot of the calls. I can't answer. It goes to the answering service. What do I need to happen? I don't want to be putting in manual leads, right? So the answering service is going to create that lead for me. How are they going to do that? They're going to submit a form. And it's like the same, like, so the system, Locus, like those forms were meant to create questionnaires, right? Like that's the purpose of the intake forms. But I knew like right away I was going to use it for like all kinds of other things, because I was like, I don't like managing people really, So I'm like, how do I ensure that my team is following my process when it comes to intake and onboarding people? I'm going to create a form. And so the form is their script, and then the script will like guide them, and it's intuitive. And if the lead is qualified, it goes one track. If it's not qualified, it goes another track. And like it does everything for them. So they don't have a checklist after every call that says, okay, I need to move this client here. I need to do all this. It's like, I will create tasks like automatically based on like wherever that particular lead lands, but the people process is like minimal, right? It's just like follow the script, submit the
Yeah.
form, and boom, it's going to send the emails, move the lead, create the questionnaire links, and all that stuff. So it's like anybody can do it, and that's what I do for. It's mostly an intake. I use it in my estate planning side as well. Like when I submit to the client a draft plan, I create a little tiny baby form that's like 3 questions, and it's like, here you can schedule an appointment for a review session, but I want to know, did you review it? Do you approve it, or do you need changes? And then if they need changes, what are those changes? And when they submit that form, if they requested changes, it's going to move their file from review to revisions. It's going to send them an email that says, thanks for reviewing your plan. We understand you want to make some changes. If you sent them to us, we're working on them. If you haven't sent them to us, please do so we can work on them. And then it sends me an email, or whoever is, assigned, to say, client reviewed their plan, they need changes, go check the intake form. And it, like all of this stuff happens. So that's how I use like intake forms. But Locus is a system for attorneys, so it's no code. Like you don't have to code it.
Right.
Like you can build all that stuff. So I'm like, I feel like a monkey could do what I'm doing. It's just like how I've weaved it. Even sometimes when I'm asking them questions about like, hey, this workflow is not working the way I want it to, can you take a look at it? And they're like, this is like extremely complex, and like we're gonna need some time. Or like most people, when they have a workflow, it's like, it's like 1 or 2 steps, you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
not like this whole entire like web. So, but it's also, one of the things that I've learned too is like you can't just always set things and forget them. Like I have to be constantly working on that stuff. So what was started as like client calls, form is submitted, they get an email that says, thank you for calling. You'll be hearing from somebody on our team shortly. Like now it's going to change depending on what practice area was selected, what's the email that they're going to get, and like all that stuff. So like it's evolved over time.
So are you the one implementing all this, or you have assistants, or do you have office, or do you have somebody, or is it just basically you saying, hey, this is what I want to Locus, or you implementing these systems?
I do that part. Yeah, I do all of the Zapier and the Locus automations and the intake form creation. The only thing I haven't done is the Excel, because it's just more like I don't know how to create data tables and stuff like that in Excel and like come up with those formulas. But in
That's
terms of like,
that's super impressive, I have to say. It's very impressive that you're getting all that done. You're doing the legal work, you're doing consults. I don't do, I mean, I've done everything that you're doing with like the systems, and Zoho has been like a super big project. We've been on it for a year and it's still not exactly what we want it. But that's what I'm doing. Just I'm pretty much in the HR. I'm not doing any legal work, not doing consults. I'll answer the phones on overflow, but for you to do all that shit, and it's super impressive. So well done.
Thanks. I'm just like very impatient also. Like,
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm the
yeah,
same. It's
I'm
like I
like,
need it done now.
yeah, I've like even said to like Lex, I'm like, I know that my project's gonna like maybe take some time. Like, let me pay you if you're gonna look at it, right? And I'm like otherwise I'm gonna get in there and I'm gonna start changing all kinds of shit, and then it's gonna be like I might make it a bigger mess. So, but very rarely do I get in a position where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to get out of this. You know what I mean? Like I can usually figure it out. And I don't think my stuff is that complex. I think that like if you were to build it like day one, the way it is now, it would be such a project. But
Yeah.
if you increment, like what I tell lawyers who are like, if sometimes I always offer lawyers who are like trying Locus, like I'm happy to talk to them and show them like how I did it, because it always just started with what are the major like touch points during the lead process, create stages for those, and then what needs to happen in each stage. Like it's not rocket science. And I don't have to write like an elaborate email. Like when I move a client from payment and questionnaire stage to draft stage, the email is just as this is a quick note to let you know that we're working on your estate plan. You'll be hearing from us within a couple of weeks, right? That's it. It's
Yeah.
not like a cute, but that's what clients want, you
Yes.
know?
It's the communication.
Yeah.
They want a lot of communication. They want to be updated on what's happening.
And they're not expecting, like when you order from Amazon, that it's Jeff Bezos that's sending you the update. You know what I
No.
mean? Like they just want to know that your firm cares and that they're doing it. So the email does come from me in most cases, but I mean, that's it. And same thing with review. When we submit something for the client to review, we send an email once a week, every single week for like 2 months to say, have you had a chance to review? Here's the link to ask for changes or approve it. Here's the link to schedule a review session. Like as long as they're in review and they haven't requested revisions and they haven't scheduled a review session, we're going to keep,
That's good. That's
pinging
really
them.
good. Yeah. It's when you ignore them, right? When you
Yeah.
ignore them is when you get the problem. We flood people with communication. I want them to tell me I would rather them tell me to stop communicating than to complain that we don't communicate enough.
Yeah. And I told like my associate that I'm bringing on, and I know we've gone like so long, and so feel free to like pull the plug on this whenever.
I have a 4:10 meeting, so I gotta jump off in a minute. Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, we had a meeting today with a client, a review session. And the last time, like, or when they hired us was almost a year ago. And when they got on that call, they were like, we're so sorry. Like, thank you to your office. Like, I know, like, we've dropped the ball on this. And, like, just the dynamic was them apologizing to me, right?
Yeah.
Whereas what I told her is like, if you've never worked in a law firm where communication with the client happened after they initiated it and they said, what's the status? Like, it's a totally different thing. If you had that meeting today and I say, them saying to us, can you believe that we hired you a year ago and we still don't have an estate plan?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's totally different dynamic. So we have to stay, like we have to be the one, like they're disappointing us, not the other way around, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Totally. I like that flow.
Yeah.
That's a better flow. Yeah. Well, it's been great talking with you. You're killing it. I love everything you set up. You're super intelligent, and keep up the good work.
Thanks. Awesome. I
Yeah.
love your group. I'm learning a lot from, like I said, I implemented that little nugget you dropped the other day on like just want a
Any
status update or whatever.
any update on getting your estate plan started?
Yeah. That one. I put that in. So, yep, I'm
That's
loving
it.
it. So,
That's
thank
like
you for having
that's
me.
like embedded in my mind. I worked at a sales job. Uh, I worked at Postcard Mania, who does our postcards now, and I had never really worked a sales job. I had been in real estate, but that's really not sales. I had done some stuff in California, but when I worked for Postcard Mania, it was like I learned what sales was. And the first like couple months I was there, every call that I made to a prospect to like try and get them follow up and start, it was like this mental gymnastics on what to say to them, right? And like, oh, what's your I don't any bullshit, right? How's your cat doing, or just some
Oh yeah, they
nonsense.
don't want to. Yeah.
No, people don't want it. It's like you're bothering them by calling them, so you better get
Mhm.
right to the fucking point. Um,
Yep.
yeah, if they're booking an appointment with you, it's on their time, and so you can chit chat a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you say that in the video you did recently, or I'm like maybe I
Yeah,
can't think of it's like I'm reading I think forget what it is like a master closer book or whatever, but I think that same like the same thing was like don't waste their time with small talk. Like that's
is that
if you answered
secret
the phone,
Secrets of a Master Closer? Is that
something
what?
like that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that book's great.
yeah,
Yeah, if you're calling them, you're interrupting their day. Who knows what the hell they're in the middle of, right? They could be sitting at their work desk and now you're calling and you want to start asking about the weather and their kids. I'm going to be like, screw you, dude. Like, get
yeah,
out of here.
yeah.
Right? You got like 30 seconds of my time. Um, but yeah, I remember being there. It's like having all these things. Like, what do I say? What do I say? And like the top sales rep there, I like stopped him in the cafeteria. I was like, hey man, what do you say to people when you follow up? And he's like, any update on getting started?
Hmm.
I was like, what else? Okay, what I was like, okay, what else do you say? He's like, that's it. I was like, no, I couldn't believe that that's all that he fucking said. And sure enough, that was it. Every single time. He could have said that same question to that guy on 5 previous calls, and on the 6th call, he's going to say the same exact thing. Yeah. Anyway,
Awesome. I love that.
yeah.
All right, cool. Well,
All
thanks
right,
again for
Nicole.
having me. Have a good
Yeah.
one.
You too. Have fun at Disney.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
See ya.